Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th Ed D&D. Today we're going to start talking about treasure. Now your players, their characters, they might adventure for many a different reason. For glory, for justice, for knowledge. But there's always a common thread between all those that go out on adventures. Fortune. And fortune takes many forms, but in particular it takes the form of coin, gemstone, objects of art, and magic items. These four combined build up the majority of the fortunes, the treasures that your characters will find along their many adventures. All of it is out there for your characters, your adventurers, to seize control of and to gain. Now, as I said, treasure consists of these four things. Coins are just that. The money that your characters traditionally spend to buy anything. It's the normal currency of the world. It's what they're getting. About 50 coins is a pound. Gemstones are traditionally much smaller than coins, but might have a greater value. This is a way that perhaps you might want to carry gemstones instead of coins because they have probably more of a value, but they don't take up as much space. Object of art are paintings, statues, jewelry, anything similar to this, oftentimes made of precious metals, involved with precious stones, or just made in such an elaborate manner that it finds great value and great wealth to it that your characters might want to have it with them. You might want to trade it off for some extra cash along the way, some extra coin, but it's something else there. And of course then we have the magic items, which your characters might discover and use to enhance themselves with magical ability. These are weapons, armor, rings, wands, staffs, rods, potions, scrolls, the like. Now there is a number of tables which will help you to build your treasures with random information, just a random degree to it. It is going to be up to the DM to determine when you get these treasures, whether it's in the possession of a monster, in some kind of lair, or some kind of reward for a quest. It will be completely up to your DM as to when this treasure comes upon your players. Most of these treasure tables are based upon the monster's CR. And that's what you're going to use to figure out how much you get from them. Now, the first type of treasure that might be encountered is individual treasure. This is something that a single monster might be carrying. This doesn't mean the monster itself necessarily has to have treasure on the mind, because this will either be on themselves or in their lair. Now, if the creature itself doesn't care about treasure, it will be incidental treasure is what it's referred to as, which it's, this creature has been killing people and their stuff has been dropping off here and collecting either something that they have in, let's say, their gullet if they're traveling with it, or maybe around its lair. But regardless, it has incidental treasure. So you roll for each of the components on these charts for individual monster treasures, and then it will give you an information about what it will provide based upon the initial D100 roll. This will be another roll to it, but you can take an average here. An average number is provided for each of these, which will tell you, you get this many of this kind of coin, this many of this kind of gem, this many of this, rather than rolling these out once again. So it only boils down to the first D100 roll, rather than a roll after that when you're detailing the information. If there are multiple creatures that would each have this individual treasure, then what you'll effectively do is multiply it. Regardless if it's being carried by them or in a lair, you multiply by the number of creatures to figure out how much you have after you've gotten the totals. Rather, again, D100, roll or average, multiply. Now, there could also be times where you feel certain types of treasure are not appropriate, such as you don't think this creature would have coins on them. Then you can easily convert the coins into gemstones or objects of art of similar value. And that's just the only thing you can do. You can convert things along the way between those three types to make it feel appropriate to what kind of treasure this creature would have. Now, a treasure hoard, on the other end, is either controlled by one big, powerful creature, by a large group of creatures, or it could be, in fact, spread out over the course of an adventure, rather than just a individual treasure, which sounds a lot more like a reward you'd get for it, because you could also make a treasure hoard a reward. You could also take this information from the hoard and then split it off into the components and spread it throughout the adventure. So your characters still get the hoard, it's just they assemble the hoard from the beginning location of pieces at a time. Now, when we talk about a single creature and it's being powerful, having a hoard, you're going to just use its CR to determine the hoard size. If you're talking about a group of creatures that has a horde, whatever is their most powerful member, you're going to use its CR to determine the size and the components of the horde. If you're in an area where neither of these numbers make sense, but there are powerful creatures there, whatever creature is effectively in charge of the dungeon area or superior within the dungeon area, you're going to use it as the example for determining the treasure side. Or, if you're using it more on the reward side, you could effectively use your party's average character level, average of all their levels together, to figure out what the size of the horde will be. These are the 4 ways that you're going to figure out what kind of size my horde will be. Once again, I will roll percentiles and look to coins, objects of art, gemstones, and magic items. A lot of times, hordes are more likely where you're going to find magic items, either taken by powerful creatures, powerful monsters, or locked away in some kind of vault somewhere to be discovered. It's assumed that if they have a magic item from before, they might just be using it. Now, this isn't to say, once again, each of these has numbers that you could take the average on. And even after that's said and done, I could look at this horde and say, that's not enough. On any of these components, I can multiply that component anytime I wish if I feel like the horde would be larger. I'm perfectly legally allowed to do that. I can, in fact, would have to do that in circumstances. Like, for example, legendary creatures. A legendary creature will have a much greater horde than a non-legendary one. So if I'm fighting a legendary creature and I'm figuring out the hordes for my players, well, then I will most likely at least double the amounts of everything that legendary creature will have. The thing is about these treasures, I can increase them or lower them as much as I feel is appropriate. I'm only using this as a general guideline to basically figuring out what this is. A little bit of random chance adds a little bit of essence to it. But if I feel like it has to be more or less, I can do that. For a typical campaign, you're going to get treasure hordes 7 times from your 0 to 4th level, 7 rolls. 18 rolls from 5 to 10, 12 rolls from 11 to 16, and only 8 rolls if you're 17 or above. These are important numbers because these tend to be the 4 groups of treasure. Effectively, these are the 4 charts that you mainly be looking at. These are the level division between them. So you can see that these charts, you only get each of them these number of times traditionally. This is assumed an average amount of treasure your players will be gaining for these campaigns. Beyond that will be more restricted and you'll have to figure it out. Either you want less treasure overall or more, you can do them both still. For gemstones, normally what I would do is once I've gained a number of gemstones, I roll once, figure out what that gemstone is, and apply it that is just an amount of that gemstone. That's traditionally what you do. If I really wanted to, I could roll for each individual gemstone and figure out which each one is, make them all unique, but it is usually easier to do one and have them all. On the other hand, objects of art, I will roll for each of these. In this case, though, rolling a repeat is fine. You're allowed to have multiples of the same object of art. It's just usually you want to roll for each one of them in this case. Magic items, as I said, have been lost to this horde, to this lair, to this treasure, and once you're finding them, your characters are using them to unlock new magical potential. Whether this is a new magical ability that they did not have before, did not have access to, that's now being added to their character, or some kind of enhancement that's enhancing one of their pre-existing magical components, one of their pre-existing abilities that they have, are both possibilities for a magic weapon, a magic item, to give to your players. But that's it for today. So I dove into treasure. I talked about the main 2 types of treasure, individual monster treasure, and of course, horde treasure. It's important to note this consists of coins, gemstones, object of art, and magic items. Each of these will, and each of them has their own rules for determining a little bit about what you're getting. But you as the GM, alter it however you like, whenever you like. In the next episode, though, we are going to move on a little bit, and we're going to talk about rarity, which is important for magic items, attunement, which is important for magic items, and move a little bit more into some general treasure and magic item information combined. We're diving more into the magic item section, because this is going to be a critical component of stuff that your characters are going to pick up along the way. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe at for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel and the Empire. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.